Hello there everybody. If there is one thing we know about concrete farmer Mike Graham, it is he vehemently supports the right to protest. But only when the protesters are demonstrating against something he happens to despise. For example, I would expect things like Drag Queen's Story Hour or Drag Queen's Story Time, whatever it's called. Graham has the raving ump about the protest of anti-monarchist group Republic during the coronation. Now, for anybody who's been following this, the real scandal here is the police arresting Republic members despite the fact they have been negotiating with the police for months prior to the protest, agreeing with the Met where they would be positioned, what they would chant, the banners they would be displaying. Indeed, the police were aware of almost every single detail of what Republic's protest would involve. But that wasn't enough for the police to go back on their word, and they decided to arrest members of Republic anyway. Naturally, Mike Graham was delighted with this outcome, and he is going to bend himself into a pretzel trying to defend the creeping fascism on display in the UK, which is there for all to see when police are targeting peaceful protesters at the behest of an unelected monarchy. Graham's guest is Baroness Fox, and if you don't know her background story, it's quite an interesting one. She was a member, activist and campaigner for the Revolutionary Communist Party for over 20 years, and even co-edited their magazine called Living Marxism. Fast forward to 2019, she is now completely unrecognisable as she joined the Brexit Party, becoming an MEP for the North West of England region. Fox was subsequently nominated for a peerage and accepted it, the move of a total hypocrite considering she was an opponent of the existence of the House of Lords and even congratulated Liberal Democrats for not taking up their peerages in 2015. I'm telling you this because I don't want anybody thinking I am in any way a fan of Fox, but it just so happens she is going to make the concrete farmer look rather daft during this back and forth on the right to protest. So let's take a look, shall we?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the controversy has been around the demonstrations.
Yes.
And I do have quite strong opinions on that because partly, I suppose, out of an interest that I sat through so many hours of my life arguing against aspects of the public order bill that have now been enacted, because I was always of the opinion that the danger with the very wide sweeping powers that the police have been given would be about anticipating a demonstration that could or might happen and stopping it. And I do think that's a very serious challenge.
Yes. No, I agree. I'm glad you have those thoughts because I knew you would have, and I thought you and I could have a good conversation about it because I was quite pleased that those particular members of the Republican movement were arrested, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But let's have a look at what they did do and what they did actually say. Now, that particular clip, Claire, is my argument against anyone who says they were silenced, they weren't allowed to demonstrate, because they were. They were in the Mall, and they were in Trafalgar Square, and they were making quite a lot of noise, and they were perfectly quite right to do so if they wished, and I'd support their right to do that. But what I wouldn't support is their right to go too near the procession where they could have caused a problem, where they could have caused a public order sort of repercussion, if you like, because people might not have enjoyed what they were going to do. There was talk that they were going to try and startle horses, all of that sort of thing. And I think in those circumstances, if you look at the coronation and the procession as a kind of a moment for national security to be quite well protected, you let them demonstrate somewhere else. I'm fine with that.
But I think that the details are important here. I'm a Republican, but I'm not like a Republican enough that I would have gone on that demonstration, right? But Graham Smith, to be fair, and that organisation did all of the things. You've just talked about red tape with councils. Well, let me tell you want to organise a demo, red tape's got nothing on it, right? So they negotiated the deal with the police. It was agreed where they were going to go, what they were going to do, and they turned up to do what they'd agreed with the police, and they were arrested.
Yeah.
You can't have that, right? And you were just making the point, there was talk of the fact that they would, well, that suspicion that's gossip, right? That's not evidence.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to act on that because the carrying out of such a thing would be more dangerous than to stop it from happening.
But they'd agreed with the police what the demonstration was going to be.
Yeah, but the police have got to make an assessment, haven't they? Whether you believe what they're telling you or whether you don't, because they might say one thing and do something else.
Yes, but on that basis, we will never have the right to demonstrate because you, in good faith, say, I'm organise a demonstration, you negotiate with the police and they go, yeah, but we don't believe you, mate, we're arresting you. I mean, think about...
Yeah, well, then in that case, though, Claire, you have to have good faith with the demonstrators, which you know as well as I do, you can't always have.
No, you can't always have, but I do think the right to demonstrate, let's put it in, we're thinking of it about this particular event, but this would be and could be used against any single demonstration. You make an arrangement with the police, for example, to have an anti-ULEZ demonstration.
Yeah.
You arrange all of it, you got everyone to turn up, you're opening your van, and the police go, do you know what? I think these lot are a bit dodgy and they're going to do something that they didn't tell us they were going to do. And that's why some of the public order bill, which is, for example, introduce suspicion-less stop and search, gives wide powers to the police to speculate. And as we know, my argument has always been that the police have adequate powers to deal with demonstrations, which they always have. And we have seen in relation to a lot of the Just Stop Oil demonstrations, those kind of things, they haven't intervened. So in this instance, I thought it was inappropriate to arrest those people. By the way, that I heard, somebody in a previous conversation saying, and they were going to let off rape alarms and that could have led to the horses. Well, a different story that was going on was that the night safety volunteers who actually do have rape alarms were actually a voluntary group, and today's a day of volunteering, who are there to help women if there should be any fears, in a big crowded situation like that. And they were arrested and put inside for 14 hours or something. So, look, I think civil liberties are very important. As it happens, I think that there's nothing to be gained by creating. I mean, Republic have got far more publicity this way than they ever would have done.
And also, let's also not forget that they did have a massive demo. You're talking as if they weren't allowed to do anything.
Look, I still think if I was let me tell you, if I was organising a demonstration, it might not have been this demonstration, and I turned up with the van and the placards and all the rest of it, we were carted off to the police station and arrested. In this country, we just don't do that. We're not meant to do that.
No, I understand
we're meant to believe in.
We're also entering a new era of demonstrations, aren't we? Demonstrations when you and I were younger used to involve carrying banners, locking arms and walking down streets. It didn't involve gluing yourself to stuff, letting down.
They weren't gluing themselves to anything. Sorry to interrupt, but this is infuriating. They'd agreed what they could do. They agreed what they were going to do. With the police. So, unbelievable. We're entering a new era of demonstration. And she did very well to bring up a ULEZ protest, by the way. Because can you imagine if police arrested anti-ULEZ demonstrators? Do you think Mike Graham would take the same tone? Oh, well, they're gluing themselves to things. No. Not at all.
Hang on, letting down people's tyres, spray painting people's private cars, all of that.
There was no reason. They didn't know any of this was going to happen. That what they've said is they could have done all of those things. Well, we all could have done anything.
Yes, but you can't just wait for it to happen always, can you? I mean, that's like saying you shouldn't arrest a terrorist till he's blown something up.
I'm sorry, but I think that well, first of all, they have to have intelligence about whether somebody with an active terrorist record is about to do something. And therefore, to say that demonstrators are on a par with terrorists is partly where I get worried.
Yeah, but the point is, we've got to live in the real world, though, Claire. We've got to live in the real world. They were allowed to have a demonstration. Nobody stopped them from having a demonstration.
The organisers of the demonstration were arrested, put in prison.
They were, yes, because they were unloading a load of, maybe they were unloading a load of PA equipment, which they say they were unloading, which would have made, which might have been designed to disrupt the procession.
Maybe they were doing something which might have been, maybe, might, possibly, who knows,
which might have been designed, and don't forget, this is a once-in-a-lifetime situation, this particular parade, this particular, coronation. There isn't going to be another one probably as long as you and I are alive. There might be, but the point is that it's a one-off situation.
Thus, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to protest at it.
And I think to suggest that this is somehow setting a precedent, I don't think it is.
It's a one-off situation. God, if an organisation called Republic can't organise a demonstration, which they negotiated with the police, by the way, all the parameters.
Well, that's what they say. That's what they say. I don't necessarily.
I don't think the police have denied that.
But Claire, we don't know what they negotiated with the police, do we?
No, we don't.
So maybe they didn't negotiate that bit.
The police, as it happens, have not justified. They basically simply say, we've got the powers and we made a judgment. I'm saying to you, look, this one-off day, imagine you're a republic, right? Coronations don't come along very often.
Yeah.
If they can't demonstrate on the day of the coronation, God, what's the point of them, right?
Yeah, but they did demonstrate. That's my point. To say that they didn't demonstrate is nonsense.
There were people who had placards, but they had an organised demonstration.
Yeah, but they were all there. They all demonstrated.
They weren't all there because a lot of them were in prison.
Well, half a dozen of them were in prison. Good.
I am indicating to the organisers, that's quite important. I am indicating that I think that we should be concerned about the civil liberties breach when the police use the new powers that they have in a way that I think can be dangerous.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right to say that. And there will be, I'm sure, and I think today it's going to happen, an investigation into what the police did, why they did what they did, and what their justification is. And I would welcome that. But I would still rather that than have something terrible happen, which would make this country look terrible in the eyes of the world while the demo was on. They were perfectly capable of making lots and lots of noise, which they were then able to do up and down the Mall and up and down Whitehall and in Trafalgar Square. But listen, we've got to take a break.
So they do come back and discuss this a little further, but it's just more of Graham going around in circles, and I don't want to put you through any more of this because it's gone on long enough, I appreciate. But this really was classic Mike Graham in action. He managed to make himself look silly in about 5 different ways. The problem is, old Captain Concrete here is representative of how fundamentally dumb conservatives think. Individual protests have to pass their political litmus tests, and if they fail, they are quite happy for authorities like the police and governments to stamp down on human rights. It's absolutely pathetic, but completely unsurprising. Cheers for watching. Bye.